take your credit card and you go shopping and you run up a large credit card debt, you're running a trade deficit with all those shops. Now, it would be pretty strange if you then blamed all the shop owners for having sold you all those things. You're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, I'm running a trade deficit. That is the level of understanding of the President of the United States.
Jeffery Sachs lays bare the flawed reasoning behind Donald Trump's trade rhetoric and criticizes Trump's trade policies as delusional, stating even Mickey Mouse would understand them better.
Then he calculated a formula. Okay, Lesotho, we have to tax them by the amount to reduce the imports from them so that we have balance with Lesotho. And then they made some absolutely stupid formula that you would not accept in a first year, third week class. It came out of the US Trade Representative's office. They probably were told, do it overnight, the boss wants it. And then they came up with a list of tariffs, country by country, based on the bilateral trade balance. You cannot make this stuff up. This is not it used to be not a Mickey Mouse country, my country. But this is Mickey Mouse. This is not, and I'm sorry, I apologize to Mickey Mouse. He would not do this. Mickey Mouse is smarter than this.
He asserted Trump's fundamental misunderstanding of trade would cause him to fail a basic economics course. The basics of trade deficits. Trade deficits occur when a country imports more goods and services than it exports.
It represents spending relative to production or earnings. We call that an identity. I teach it in the second day of my course in international monetary economics. Trump never made it to the second day.
This situation might seem alarming, but it's essential to understand that trade deficits are not inherently negative. They reflect a nation's spending habits relative to its income. When a country like the United States spends more than it earns, it runs a trade deficit. This is not a sign of weakness, but rather an indication of economic activity and consumer demand. Imagine a family that spends more on groceries and entertainment than it earns. This family isn't necessarily failing. They might be investing in their future or enjoying a standard of living that exceeds their immediate income. Similarly, a trade deficit can indicate a vibrant economy where consumers have access to a variety of goods and services. In the case of the United States, our trade deficit often correlates with strong consumer spending and investment. The country enjoys a high standard of living, which allows for significant imports. The key takeaway is that trade deficits are a complex issue influenced by various factors, including consumer behavior, exchange rates, and economic policies. If you enjoyed this video so far, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional great content. Misunderstanding trade policies. Many misconceptions surround trade policies and deficits. One of the most prevalent is the belief that a trade deficit equates to a failure in negotiations, or that it signifies that a country is being taken advantage of. This misunderstanding can lead to misguided policies that do more harm than good. Trade is not a zero-sum game where one nation's gain is another's loss. Instead, trade allows countries to specialize in producing goods and services where they hold a comparative advantage. When countries engage in trade, they can benefit from each other's strengths. Misunderstanding this fundamental principle leads to disastrous policies that can disrupt the global economy. Political rhetoric often simplifies these complex issues, framing trade deficits as a betrayal. This oversimplification ignores the underlying economic realities and the benefits of trade. The narratives that suggest other countries are cheating or stealing jobs fail to account for the interconnected nature of the global economy. The consequences of trade wars. Trade wars, often initiated by tariffs and restrictions, have far-reaching consequences. When a country imposes tariffs, it aims to protect domestic industries. However, the reality is that such actions usually backfire. Increased costs for imported goods lead to higher prices for consumers. This can reduce overall demand and slow economic growth. Moreover, trade wars can lead to retaliation from other countries. When one nation raises tariffs, affected countries often respond in kind. This cycle can escalate quickly, resulting in a full-blown trade war that harms all parties involved. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that disruptions in one area can ripple through various markets, leading to instability and uncertainty. In recent years, we've seen how trade wars can lead to significant market fluctuations. The uncertainty created by tariffs can undermine investor confidence, leading to stock market declines. When businesses face higher costs, they may pass those costs on to consumers or cut back on investments, ultimately impacting economic growth. Political emergency decrees. The use of emergency decrees to enact trade policies raises concerns about governance and accountability. In a democratic system, such powers are typically reserved for Congress. However, when a president circumvents legislative processes, it undermines the principles of checks and balances. Emergency decrees can lead to hasty decisions that lack thorough consideration. This can result in policies that do not align with long-term economic goals. When trade policies are enacted without proper debate, they can lead to unintended consequences that affect not only the economy, but also international relations. The reliance on emergency powers can create a precedent that allows for further erosion of democratic norms. It opens the door for future administrations to bypass legislative processes, leading to a cycle of instability and unpredictability in trade relations. The flaws of protectionism. Protectionism, the practice of shielding domestic industries from foreign competition, often seems appealing in the face of economic challenges. However, it is fundamentally flawed. While it may provide short-term relief to certain sectors, the long-term consequences are detrimental to the overall economy. Protectionist policies can lead to inefficiencies. When domestic industries are shielded from competition, they may lack the incentive to innovate or improve. This can result in stagnation, ultimately harming consumers who face fewer choices and higher prices. The illusion of safeguarding jobs can mask the reality that protectionism often leads to job losses in other sectors. Furthermore, protectionism can escalate tensions between nations. When one country imposes tariffs, others may retaliate, leading to a breakdown in trade relationships. This not only affects bilateral trade, but can also have broader implications for global economic cooperation. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, the consequences of protectionism extend beyond national borders. Global trade dynamics and historical context. Understanding global trade dynamics requires a historical perspective. The evolution of trade has been shaped by various factors, including technological advancements, geopolitical shifts, and economic policies. Since World War II, nations have worked towards creating a more integrated global economy. The establishment of institutions like the World Trade Organization aimed to foster cooperation and reduce barriers to trade. Historically, trade has been a catalyst for economic growth. Countries that embrace trade tend to experience higher levels of innovation and prosperity. The post-war era saw unprecedented levels of growth, lifting millions out of poverty. However, recent trends towards protectionism threaten to reverse these gains. As nations grapple with economic challenges, it's essential to remember the lessons of history. Trade has the power to unite countries and drive progress. A return to isolationist policies risks not only economic stagnation, but also the potential for increased conflict on the global stage. The role of automation in job loss. Automation is a significant factor in the changing landscape of employment. While many attribute job losses to trade and globalization, automation plays a crucial role. Advances in technology have transformed industries, often leading to a decline in traditional jobs. As businesses adopt automated processes, the demand for human labor decreases. This shift can create anxiety and frustration among workers, who may feel that their jobs are being threatened by external forces. However, it's essential to recognize that automation is a natural progression in economic development. Rather than focusing solely on trade as the culprit for job loss, it's important to consider how society can adapt to these changes. Investing in education and training programs can help workers transition to new roles in a changing economy. Embracing automation as a tool for efficiency rather than a threat can lead to new opportunities for growth and innovation. The future of global cooperation. The future of global trade hinges on cooperation and collaboration among nations. As we face shared challenges such as climate change and public health crises, the need for collective action becomes increasingly clear. A return to multilateralism and rule-based trade systems is essential for fostering stability and growth. Global cooperation can lead to innovative solutions that benefit all nations. By working together, countries can address pressing issues while promoting economic development. The potential for partnerships and collaboration is vast, and embracing this future can help mitigate the risks associated with protectionism and isolationism. Ultimately, the path forward involves recognizing the interconnectedness of our global economy. By prioritizing cooperation over conflict, nations can create a more resilient and prosperous world for future generations. Protectionism's broader impacts. Protectionism goes beyond mere tariffs and trade barriers. It alters the very fabric of international relationships. When countries retreat into their shells, the global community suffers. Cooperation diminishes and trust erodes. This isolationist approach has serious consequences for diplomacy and mutual understanding. Trade wars foster resentment. When one nation imposes tariffs, it sparks retaliatory measures. This tit-for-tat mentality breeds hostility, making it harder to resolve conflicts. Instead of working together, nations become adversaries. The result is a fragmented world where collaboration becomes rare. Protectionism also stifles innovation. Companies shielded from competition lack the urgency to innovate and improve. Without external pressure, they may become complacent. This stagnation can lead to a decline in quality and efficiency, ultimately harming consumers. The broader economy suffers when industries fail to evolve. Moreover, protectionist policies can exacerbate inequality. They often benefit a select few while leaving others behind. Workers in protected industries may see short-term gains, but those in export-driven sectors may lose jobs. This imbalance can widen the gap between rich and poor, destabilizing societies. In the long run, protectionism threatens global stability. It creates an environment where conflict is more likely. Nations that engage in protectionist practices may find themselves isolated. The potential for collaboration diminishes, leading to a more dangerous world. Navigating protectionism case studies. Examining real-world examples reveals the complexities of protectionism. Countries often turn to protectionist measures in times of crisis. The Great Depression of the 1930s is a prime example. The United States implemented the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which raised tariffs on hundreds of imports. This decision backfired, leading to a decline in trade and worsening the economic downturn. More recently, the trade war between the United States and China has highlighted the pitfalls of protectionism. Tariffs imposed by the U.S. aim to protect domestic industries. However, they led to increased prices for consumers and retaliatory tariffs from China. This resulted in a cycle of escalation that harmed both economies. In the European Union, protectionist measures have also emerged. The push for local sourcing and trade barriers can be seen in the context of Brexit. The desire to protect domestic jobs has led to tensions within the EU. The consequences of such protectionism can create rifts that are hard to mend. These case studies illustrate that while protectionism may seem like a quick fix, it often leads to more significant challenges. The long-term effects can be detrimental, highlighting the need for thoughtful policies that promote collaboration rather than isolation. The climate crisis and economic policies. The climate crisis demands urgent attention. Economic policies must align with sustainability goals. Protectionism, however, can hinder progress. When nations focus solely on domestic industries, global efforts to combat climate change suffer. Collaborative initiatives are essential for addressing this pressing issue. Investment in green technologies is crucial. Countries that embrace international cooperation can lead the way in innovation. Sharing resources and knowledge accelerates the transition to a sustainable economy. However, protectionist measures can stifle this collaboration. For instance, countries that impose tariffs on renewable energy technologies may find themselves lagging behind. By restricting imports of solar panels or wind turbines, they limit their capacity to harness clean energy. This not only affects their environment, but also their economic competitiveness in a rapidly evolving market. To combat the climate crisis effectively, nations must work together. This includes sharing advancements in technology and creating joint initiatives. A protectionist approach undermines these efforts, ultimately jeopardizing the planet's future. The risks of deglobalization. Deglobalization poses significant risks to economic stability. As countries retreat from global trade, the interconnectedness of economies diminishes. This shift can lead to increased volatility and uncertainty in markets. A fragmented world is more vulnerable to economic shocks. Moreover, deglobalization can exacerbate existing inequalities. Countries that rely heavily on exports may face dire consequences if global trade declines. Job losses in these sectors can lead to social unrest. The economic divide between nations could widen, creating further tensions. Additionally, deglobalization hampers innovation. Collaboration across borders fosters creativity and progress. When nations isolate themselves, they miss out on opportunities for growth. The potential for new ideas and advancements diminishes, hindering overall development. Ultimately, deglobalization threatens not only economies, but also global peace. A retreat from cooperation can lead to conflicts. Nations that choose isolation may find themselves facing increasing challenges, both domestically and on the world stage. Addressing global indebtedness and inequality. Global indebtedness is a pressing issue that requires urgent attention. As countries grapple with rising debt levels, the impact of protectionism can exacerbate the problem. Higher tariffs can lead to inflation, further straining economies already burdened by debt. Many nations allocate significant resources to servicing debt, often at the expense of essential services like education and healthcare. This creates a vicious cycle where inequalities deepen. The wealth gap continues to widen, leaving vulnerable populations at risk. Addressing these challenges requires comprehensive strategies. Countries must prioritize sustainable economic growth while managing debt levels. This includes investing in education and infrastructure, which can create jobs and stimulate the economy. Cooperation among nations is essential. By sharing resources and knowledge, countries can work together to tackle global indebtedness. This collaborative approach can help ensure that economic growth benefits everyone, not just a privileged few. Future employment in an automated world. The rise of automation brings both challenges and opportunities. As technology advances, the nature of work is changing. Many traditional jobs may disappear, but new roles will emerge. Preparing for this shift is crucial for the future workforce. Investing in education and training is essential. Workers must be equipped with the skills needed in an automated economy. Lifelong learning will become increasingly important as industries evolve. Governments and businesses must collaborate to create training programs that meet the demands of the future. Moreover, embracing automation can lead to increased productivity. While some fear job loss, automation can enhance efficiency and innovation. By focusing on the potential benefits, societies can harness technology to create a more prosperous future. Ultimately, the key lies in adaptation. As the workforce shifts, proactive measures will ensure that people are not left behind. Embracing change and investing in skills will pave the way for a thriving economy in an automated world. The path forward. The path forward requires a commitment to cooperation and collaboration. Protectionism may seem like a short-term solution, but its long-term consequences are detrimental. Nations must recognize the value of working together to address global challenges. As we face issues like climate change, economic inequality, and technological shifts, the need for collective action is clear. By prioritizing collaboration over isolation, countries can build a more resilient and prosperous future. Investment in sustainable practices and education will be key to navigating the future. Embracing innovation and adapting to change will empower societies to thrive in an interconnected world. The day ahead may be challenging, but the rewards of cooperation are immeasurable. Thinking about building a more secure financial future through investing? I use interactive brokers and have included a link in the description for you to explore if you're interested in learning more. If you enjoyed this video, please give it